Hey everyone, it's Mr. Panda coming at you direct for the first time in a long time. Today's Friday the 13th and it feels like a really important day for reasons I can't possibly fathom. But waking up today, it occurred to me that it's been a really long time since my face was actually showing up on something on the YouTube channel. How is it that it can simultaneously feel like it's been no time and yet it's been a very long time? Just blows my mind. How y'all doing on those New Year's resolutions? Have those been working out for you? I feel like I'm not the only one whose plan for the year took a distinctly different turn than what was originally intended as we entered 2020. We still have a few weeks left. Who knows what's going to happen going through the end of the year? I'd like to say that it's not all bad, and honestly, I don't think it has been all bad, but it's hard to keep on top of what's been positive compared with all the malaise and the negativity that's been going on the past few months. That and for so many other reasons, I finally decided that I needed to sit down and talk about this for a minute. If you've been following Manly Battleships for as long as we've been around, you know that digital content has not been our primary focus, and we've only recently come back to really churning out that type of content within the past 2 years or so. And if you're an anime fan, you know that the con cancellations have just been rolling out day after day. Now, as the early 2021 conventions are also announcing cancellations, we really don't have a set date for when we can expect the real world fandom to return to some semblance of normalcy. And that's not a bad thing, by the way, because with the way COVID 19 works, we don't really want that to be a thing. Like, we do technically have some scheduled engagements coming out, but we haven't really talked about them or announced them in any way because there's so much uncertainty coming into the new year that it's almost not worth talking about. If you've been trolling along with our Instagram, you know that we've been trying to do a little bit more behind the scenes stuff the past few weeks, and I'm sitting in what was meant to be a surprise, which is this is the new home of Manly Battleships that I'm sitting in right now at its secret base location. This has been a several months process that is still not done and is behind schedule for a number of reasons. So I'm not going to give you the tour, but I'll just go ahead and say it because we've teased it for so long that I'm assuming anyone who cares out there has kind of already guessed where we're going with that. And the hope was that when we picked up this space that we would set things up pretty quickly and then begin a new campaign to focus on digital content. That at this time hasn't happened, which you've probably noticed. As I'm sure some of you are aware, Rockstar has been having some recurrent health issues and is back in school at the same time. So the content that we have been making in terms of the live streams for games and our TikTok is about the maximum extent that we've been able to do for the time being. A lot of these issues kind of interconnect because since, we don't have this space set up, we can't really work on bigger projects, and because we don't have bigger projects, we're stuck doing the smaller projects, and it just kind of snowballs downhill. YouTube is a platform that I personally have always felt very strongly in support of since it came out. But at the same time, the Manly Battleships YouTube channel was never something that we focused on in the early days. First generation Manly Battleships was a slightly different animal in terms of the type of content we were putting out alongside what we were doing at conventions. For several years, conventions became our only real concern because that's what we like doing. That's what we want to do. It's what we work so hard to accomplish and have built up over the past few years. But digital content is important too, and that's something that we started to retool for a little bit over the course of the past 2 years. And then COVID hit, and then it's kind of like the rug got pulled out from under us before we were really set up to deal with that. So despite having hours and hours of live content that's been designed, it's not stuff that we can easily adapt to the digital sphere, and even if we could, there's a lot of it that we probably wouldn't want to, both because of a business perspective and because, well, we have this sort of philosophical thing going where it's the people who are entitled to see the content that we design for a live audience are the people who pay to go to the con and take the time out of their day to come and sit at the panel room. So most of our digital content looks a lot different from our live content, and we've gone through a couple different iterations of things. We had a long-form talk video podcast, we had a short-form newsy video podcast that I thought was actually doing decent by our current standards of performance, but then that got interrupted too because all the real-world stuff that was happening in the spring and into the summer just made it all feel less important. And I got to tell you, something that was particularly disheartening was finding out that recycling a lot of our YouTube content onto the new TikTok platform that we've been pushing actually generated more interest than we'd ever seen on YouTube. It really kind of shook things up in terms of where we wanted to allocate our resources for the most impact. Yeah, it can be really stressful to adapt to a completely different creative environment than you're used to. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The difference between performing live on stage and doing a live video or a pre-recorded video is incredibly different. And as far as COVID is concerned, the moratorium on live appearances for us is going to extend anywhere from a few months, possibly to the end of 2021. Worst case scenario, maybe even longer. And that's where we are right now, which then raises the question that I mentioned earlier in the video: where do we go from here? And the honest answer is, I don't know. What we've learned from our metrics over the past few years is that we've gotten an okay understanding of how some content works better than others. We've gotten a decent idea about how little the algorithm cares about us. And we genuinely think that a lot of our content is decent to pretty good. We still don't have a concrete strategy for which of the lines of our creative strategies work best for you guys. And that's kind of the paradox of being a creative person, is you want to make content because you like making the content, but what helps facilitate that is other people also recognizing and liking your content. Otherwise, you kind of wake up one day and wonder, why am I even doing this anymore? Out of all the types of resources that we've aligned and are reallocating to different types of projects this past year, there's one thing that you really just can't buy more of, and that's time. Which sounds like a weird thing to say when COVID is making it impossible to do a lot of other things, but time is still a finite resource, and we're finding out more and more that it counts for a lot to have time to do things. And if I have my way, I'd really like to spend more time here doing stuff for you guys. But it's really hard because, especially when you're a smaller channel like ours, it always feels like you're building back up from zero every time you go on a hiatus like the past few months here. Or then you try something new for a few weeks, and that doesn't get as good of a reception as some of the other stuff that you've done in the past. There are a couple back burner ideas that are just like written out very surreptitiously on a piece of paper in a notebook somewhere. It's really tough to feel like you're not sure what's worth your time to actually come up and create. This video is already longer than I intended, and I've rambled on a little too long. So the point that I'm trying to get at is that a big favor to us here at Mainly Battleships would be if you could take some time and decide what it is about us in the digital world that you really like. Whether it be short-form sketch comedy or Let's Plays, stuff that you actually enjoy watching and that you feel keeps you coming back to us, whether it's here or on one of our other creative platforms. That's the kind of thing that we really want to hear about. So you'd be doing everyone a huge favor if you took a look at the past library of content that we have here and telling us what you actually enjoyed. By the way, that goes for every creator, especially on the lower end of things. People love hearing from you about what makes you happy. It tends to really weigh on you when you're at a certain point in your life and you realize that all you want to do is create content that makes people happy, that makes people laugh, maybe makes them think from time to time. You also start to think about how every minute that you have counts for something, and we'd rather that the minutes that we have left be dedicated to making that happen. I think that's everything that I had planned to say. So there are a few things that we already have planned that will probably show up on the channel sometime in the near future. But once that's through, we really need to think about what's going to happen next. And I don't know the answer to that, but I am excited about what the future might hold. And there's no other group of people that I'd rather be going forward with into that future than those of you watching this video right here, right now. That's all I've got, guys. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again really soon down the road.